Good evening and welcome. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Evanston. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for major variations, special uses, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. Depending on the type of matter, this board will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Melissa, will you call roll, please?
Lisa Deacon. Here. Scott Gingold.
Present.
Mary McCauley. Mary Beth Burns.
Here.
Violetta Cullen.
Present.
Myrna Aravallo.
Here.
And Kirill Miranchev.
With five members present, we do have a quorum tonight. Also present tonight are our zoning planner, Melissa Klotz, and planning and zoning administrator, Scott Mangum. This is a formal meeting, and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Next, persons who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. Any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the board will close the record and begin deliberations. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you address the board, please state your name and address and sign in on the provided sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. There are a lot of items on this agenda tonight. 6 items on the agenda. Is 3318 Grant here?
Yes.
Great. How about 2004 Central Street, and 1724 Sherman, and 2200 Main, and 3048 Custer, and last but not least, 1943 Sherman. They got time to show up. Okay. Before we get into all of our business, anybody who has an intention on speaking tonight, can I get you to raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Fabulous. First of all, we will go with the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Yes.
Any comments? Any changes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 8th, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And I will note that those not voting were not here at that meeting. Next, we will move on to old business, which is 3318 Grant Street. That was a project that we heard 2 meetings ago, and we were at a 3-3 tie on that vote. We have the 7th member of our board here tonight, and I just want to confirm, Myrna, that you've had a chance to look at all the documents on file and you've seen all the testimony.
Yes, I have.
Fantastic. And your vote on that case is?
In favor.
All right. So with a vote of 4-3, your variances are approved. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to 2004 Central Street. This is a continuance from our last meeting, which we did not read into the record. So, Melissa, who's reading? Scott, would you mind reading that into the record, please?
Yes.
Those are yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the public. This item is a special use for a Type 2 restaurant. John Kim, property owner, applies for the special use to expand a Type 2 restaurant, Backlot Coffee, from 2006 Central Street to also include 2004 Central Street. This is located within the B1A Business District and OCSC Central Street Overlay District. In this case, the ZBA makes a recommendation to City Council, and the City Council is a determining body. City staff and DAPR have both reviewed the case and are recommending approval for the Type 2 restaurant. Attachments included with the staff report include the application, the business summary, plat survey, sustainability practices worksheet, 1 letter of support, and additional information about the property. That concludes a summary of the staff report, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kim, if you wouldn't mind coming up and telling us a little bit about your project?
Thank you for your time, guys.
If we can wait 1 second, we can get the last zoning board member to hear the case. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your time. So what we're proposing to do...
Start with your name and business address,
My name is
please.
John Kim, Backlot Coffee, 2006 Central Street.
Thank you.
And what we're proposing to do is, on the left side is what's existing right now, and then on the right side would be 2004 Central Street. So we want to bust a hole through the front wall, the east-facing wall, and then create more seating and build out kind of a light food kitchen in the back corner of the restaurant. So there won't be any major changes to what we're already doing other than creating some more food in-house and add more seating to the existing space.
What kinds of new foods will you be preparing in-house?
Just what we're already doing. So instead of doing the burritos, we'll do them in-house, and we'll probably bake off scones in-house rather than grab them from other places and do things like that. So it won't be anything. We'll add some grain salads, do some overnight oats, but all packaged and ready to go rather than a to-order kitchen.
Does the equipment that you need for the baking already exist on site?
No, it's a kitchen remodel place, so we'll build a kitchen in the back.
And can you describe what, if anything, you need to do to build out the kitchen?
So other than refrigeration, we'll get some like commercial grade mixers in there, convection ovens. So nothing that's going to be doing black iron. So it'll all be just regular type 2 ventilation that'll vent out the heat and some of the odors. But we're not going to put in like a black iron kitchen.
Sir, how many more seats will you have here?
We'll probably double the space. So right now we're at 28 to 32, and then we'll go probably to 60 to 70 seats.
Do you have a sidewalk space?
There's a sidewalk, but we don't have a sidewalk cafe.
You don't. And so the difference between the type of food that you offer now and what you will offer is more cooked items?
Not more cooked, it'll just be prepared in advance.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know currently you get deliveries. What days are those?
every day
Every day? What time?
during business hours.
Once a day?
From all different places.
Will it increase?
No,
Okay.
it'll decrease probably.
So 2006 is an existing type 2 restaurant, and you're seeking to have that special use granted for 2004, correct?
Correct.
And so when we granted the special use for 2006, we imposed conditions on the granting of that. Are you comfortable with the same conditions applying to 2004?
Yes.
And you're adding a roaster, right?
That's actually going on Wesley. So 1042 Wesley, we just leased a space. It's Wesley and Greenleaf.
Okay.
And so eventually we may add a roaster there, but just I needed to get it up and running faster than I can build it.
Okay.
And do you have outdoor seating at the rear of the building, correct?
We have a parking lot and we have a permit to build outdoor, but because we bought 2004, we haven't actually built the patio in the back yet.
And so do you anticipate building out in the a back patio space for seating?
Yeah, so we'll use the permit that we have on 2006 side while we're doing the build out for 2004. So while I have the contractors there, we'll build a deck in the back.
And is there room on the sidewalk? I know that other storefronts on Central, I think, have sidewalk seating as well. Is there room on the sidewalk to add?
There
any
are
seating?
room. It's just not worth it for me because it's so narrow. The sidewalk isn't so wide to where I can build enough seats that make it worthwhile. And so I know Tags has a cafe, and so they've built out some seats there, but we don't really.
I'm just curious, and this might be a question for staff, but from activating the pedestrian way and having an active street, whether staff has expressed an interest in having a couple of tables and chairs out there.
Sure. They do migrate over. So they do migrate over from Tags and from Chester and Chester. So I think Chester and Chester puts out some chairs and they kind of move around.
In our packet, we have a floor plan that's different from what's up there. Is this, which is the most,
This is probably the most recent, other than what may end up happening is the kitchen will actually go all the way to the wall, and then that back exit on 2004 Central Street will be for employees only.
there was a conference room in this other plan.
Can I see the other plan?
Sure.
Ah, yes, this is the more update. They said they needed more, because the door was in the wrong place as well. in that one.
Who's they?
So the first.
Dapper?
Yeah, Dapper.
Okay.
So that's the initial drawing I gave to Dapper, and then this is the updated drawing that I
Okay.
gave.
Okay.
So did Dapper had some more drawings than this one?
No, this is what
the only
Dapper
one.
saw, yeah.
Who did that?
That was me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here who has comments for this project? Nope. All right, we will be closing the record. Comments from the board?
Expansion of a successful existing business into the space next door on the same conditions that the current space is operating seems like a no-brainer to me.
I agree.
I concur as well.
I agree with those comments. I do have a question for staff on the issue of the sidewalk seating. Is that something that staff is encouraging as a part of Central Street businesses, and is something that we'd like to see as a part of the expansion here?
It's in general, we do obviously encourage active storefronts, so whether that's by use of glass and open visibility into spaces and having seating and areas close to the windows from the inside, or where it's viable to have outdoor seating as well. But it's not a requirement.
All right. I'm very pleased that you've been successful and are able to expand as well. I think that's a great thing, so congratulations on that. There are 9 standards for special uses. Number 1, it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is, and so that standard has been met. It's in keeping with the Number 2, it's in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. One of the purposes of the comprehensive general plan is to promote growth and redevelopment and strengthen our economic base, and this is the definition of that. So that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. We've heard no testimony that there will be an increase in traffic. Certainly there will be a little, but there is that's to be expected on Central Street. And again, to have a thriving retail street would be desirable. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. It won't, and in fact, a successful business increases the value of the property as it continues to draw more people to the street. So that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. There is parking, kitty corner from the facility, from the retail space, as well as street parking, and it is served by both bus lines, I think, and certainly the Metro. It's also served, obviously, by alleys and regular garbage service. So I do believe that those standards have been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. There have been no complaints about the current location. And so we certainly expect a little bit more traffic, but certainly not undue traffic congestion. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. I don't think there's anything significantly historical or architectural about that building, but as I do understand, there will be no changes made to the exterior of the building, so that standard has been met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features, which is not applicable. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. So they will certainly comply with any business licensing that is required by the city, so that standard has been met. With that, can I have a motion?
I move in the matter ZBA 18 ZMJV-0065 with respect to the application for 2004 Central Street that we grant, or that we recommend that City Council grant the special use requested, subject to the condition that the special use permit be subject to the same conditions that were imposed on the special use permit for 2006 Central Street with respect to the hours of operation, with respect to employee parking, and with respect to deliveries and any other conditions we imposed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with a vote of 6 to 0, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project. Thank you, guys. All right, moving on to 1724 Sherman Avenue. Mr. Mangum, will you please read that into the record?
Yes, thank you, Chair Burns, members of the board, members of the public. James Shepard, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant, Kilwin's Chocolates, in the D2 downtown district. The Zoning Board of Appeals does make a recommendation to City Council, who's the determining body for this case. City staff and DAPR both recommend approval of the special use permit. DAPR did have some discussion and suggested conditions that there not be deliveries between the hours of 7 and 9, preferably during the early morning hours prior to that time period, and that the applicant complies with sustainability standards, including recycling service. With that, that's a summary of the staff report. In addition, there are attachments, the special use application, business summary, sustainability practice worksheet, plat survey, and additional documentation about the property itself. That concludes a summary. We are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind telling us your name and address, please?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Schneider. For the address of the store will be 1724 Sherman.
Great, thank you. If you tell us a little bit about your project?
Sure. So I will be the owner and operator of a Kilwin's franchise at 1724 Sherman. We're going to specialize in the sale of handcrafted fine chocolates, Kilwin's original brand, original recipe ice cream, some made-in-store products such as fudge, caramels, brittles, corns, caramel apples, and then some dipped items, chocolate dipped items that we will make in the store. And we'll also have some take-it-home products that we'll offer for people to buy. So about 30% of our product is going to be made in the store, in the front of our store, in the front window, which we call kind of our theater. It provides kind of a display for people passing by. We're going to be highly dependent on foot traffic for our business, and that kind of plays to that. So a lot of it will be seen by people walking by, us making product and displaying product in the front window on Sherman. So,
Do you own any other Kilwin's stores?
I do not. I do not own, and this is my first store.
Okay. And can you tell us where are the nearest other Kilwin's franchise stores?
So I believe the nearest one is downtown, physical location is on Michigan Avenue, Chicago. There's another one in Hyde Park, and then some of the western suburbs have them. I think the nearest one is probably Elmhurst.
And with your store, do you get some sort of geographic exclusivity?
For a building of a store, I have, I believe, a half-mile in Evanston of exclusivity for a Kilwin store.
And what are the proposed hours of operation for the store?
Right now, I think we're planning from 10 to 11. Some of that may be seasonal once we open and kind of figure that out, but probably from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
And how many employees do you expect you'll have on site at a time?
I'm told that we'll have at max 5.
Okay. And usually, particularly for a high traffic location like this, we impose a condition that employees not be permitted to use the metered parking on the street. Is that going to be fine for you?
I think so. I haven't hired any employees yet, but I envision the ones we have will be similar to people working on Sherman as it is, and I don't envision them using the metered parking. I expect public transportation or walking for most of the employees. That's what I expect.
What kinds of food deliveries will you get?
We will have a delivery from Kilwins, and I think some stores get them once a month. I believe that we could get it every 2 weeks, possibly, and I think some of that may depend on how busy we are, but I think I'm expecting every 2 weeks there'll be a delivery from Kilwins, and then maybe smaller deliveries of smaller items that we need.
Is the delivery from Kilwins, is that pre-prepared food, or is
Yes,
that...
that'll include like our ice cream and then the ingredients that we need for a lot of our made-in-store product and some of the chocolates that we sell. So.
Okay, and where will your deliveries come in?
So we need to have them in the front door. As part of our lease, it's stated that we can't have them come in through the back, and I think the back alley is very difficult for any truck to come back and do that anyway. So they'll be through the front door, and as we talked about in Dapper, I expect to have them early. And if they're not as early as we can, I think using one of the available alleys and then possibly coming in through the front door, wheeling the delivery down or something. So
How early are you proposing they would deliver?
in Dapper, I was told to have it before 7 a.m. I know most stores are earlier. I don't have an exact schedule because we don't have anything set up yet, but it should be early from what I'm told.
Sir, do you have any other food service or food store experience?
I do not know.
You've never run anything like this before?
I have not. My background is in finance.
But the franchise is training, I'm sure.
The franchise is training me, yes, and they're helping me through this whole process.
So is this an eat-in store?
No, most of and part of the special use process is we are asking for a few seats. It's
Asking for how many seats?
5 seats.
5 seats.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're a dessert destination. Most of our product is kind of grab and go, either or take it home. Envision ice cream. Somebody stops in for an ice cream and goes walking. I'm told, most customers don't stay in store. We are trying to put in a few seats just for my own experience with, if somebody has kids, just to sit down for a few minutes. Or inclement weather, especially during the winter, as we are going to be a seasonal store, just to provide a place for somebody to stop in for a few minutes. So, but it's not an eat-in store, and most people won't spend a lot of time in the store eating.
You said it's seasonal?
We sell a lot of ice cream, so a lot of the sales will go as, in better weather, we'll be busier.
You plan to be open, but if it's not really ice cream?
We'll be open all year round, yes.
And you're
we'll
not
sell everything all year round, yes.
You're going to hire a manager. You're not the manager.
No, I will be
On site.
on site, yes.
Okay. Those are my questions.
To be determined if I hire a manager yet or not. So.
Do you live in Evanston?
I do not. I live in Chicago.
Are you familiar with Evanston's litter collection plan?
I am becoming more familiar after Dapper, as far as on the sustainability report, kind of keep having the upkeep of in front of the store and stuff. That part, yeah. So.
I think Dapper also asked that you provide tap water.
Yeah, that was mentioned. We'll sell bottled water. It's Killen's kind of supplied bottled water, but yeah, we'll supply tap water. And I checked into that, and we'll have a place where we can fill that for someone if they ask. Yeah.
And the outside of this building is not super attractive. And we don't have drawings for what your plans are. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so we did get approved for permit for our signage originally, and the landlord's going to paint the building before.
They're painting the whole building or just your
They're supposed to paint the whole building. That was something we agreed to with the landlord.
Okay.
We're currently talking to the landlord now, and I think he's investigating on definitely kind of rehabbing the storefront. So that's in process now. Aside, if that does or does not happen, we are going to put new signage up on our side, and the building is supposed to be painted.
Okay. Are you planning on making any changes to any of the windows or doors?
No.
And that giant awning up above?
So that is part of what we're talking about.
Is that where the sign's going to go?
Yeah. So barring any changes in the plan, we'll have a sign on kind of the overhang on the front that's been approved, and then we're supposed to have a kind of like a wraparound. I forget the name of kind of Killen's colors that kind of go around and.
What are
hanging
Killen's
from the
colors?
back. It'll be like a burgundy. which isn't actually Killen's colors, but it's Killen's approved color. They have a selection. It's one of them, so
Okay.
it's like a burgundy color.
Okay. Do you get input on what color the building is being painted, or is that the landlord's choice?
We agreed to talk about it.
Okay.
So
What
he-
color?
he seems-
what color
he's-
are you?
he-
What
he's-
color are you trying to paint
a
it?
beigeish color. A beige.
A beigeish.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It hasn't been fully agreed on yet.
Yep.
So, but that is the plan.
Okay.
To Dapper's point, can you clarify? Scott asked about the refuse collection, but can you speak to your sustainability practices beyond tap water? Have you looked at recycling and other matters that then put you in compliance with Evanston's sustainability practices?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a new item to me when we discussed it in Dapper, and yeah, we plan to follow through with it. We'll offer recycling in the store, and we'll recycle. I talked to Groot to get the recycling going for that when we open.
So if we condition this upon you accepting the sustainability practices, there's no problem with that?
For the recycling, yeah.
But all of your, I'm sorry, I think I might have missed this. Is there anything that you serve that people would eat aside from ice cream that people would eat in this space?
We don't have would eat in the space. We'll have ice cream. It could be like our made-in-store products. They could eat fudge or
Okay.
some of the chocolate in the store. But
But you don't
most
have
of the-
anything bakery,
most-
right? It's
no,
mostly.
most of the product is eaten. We don't. I'm told we're not going to have a lot of waste, just in general. Most
Okay.
of it's eaten, other than
Okay.
probably ice cream cups. Yeah.
But you won't have plasticware.
There may be plastic spoons,
Okay. Okay.
maybe some plastic knives, but yeah.
All right. Other questions from anybody else? All right. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
Is there anybody here who has comments or questions for 1724 Sherman Avenue? Going once, going twice. With that, we will close the record. And thoughts from the board?
This proposed use fits in with the character of the neighborhood and seems like a nice project to fill in a space that's otherwise vacant. So again, in favor with the proper conditions.
I agree. I think that's an opportunity to, hopefully improve the storefront, activate that space. I've been to other Kilwins in various locations, and when I heard it coming here, I thought, oh, we're becoming a vacation town, because I usually go to Kilwins when I'm on vacation. So I think it's a nice use, and I look forward to seeing it.
I would just add also that the fact that it's a franchise means that the store is subject to franchise standards, and that relaxes my concern with a new business owner who has otherwise no experience in this type of business.
It's an excellent point.
I agree with that as well, and I'm looking forward to this. I think it'll be great for the mix. It'll draw visitors to our main street, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm in favor of the
I'm in
project.
support.
Excellent. I'm in agreement with the rest of my colleagues. So we will now go through the 9 standards for special uses. Number 1, it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is, so that standard has been met. Number 2, it is in keeping with purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. Again, we're promoting growth. One of the goals is to promote growth and redevelopment and strengthen our economic base, which a business that is coming into a vacant storefront certainly will do. So that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. Although the downtown is filled with special uses, the downtown is set up to handle all of those special uses. And this certainly is complementary to everything else that's going on in the downtown area. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. As we say all the time, an activated storefront increases the value of the neighborhood. So that standard has certainly been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. it's right there in the downtown, and so you can get to it via every mode of transportation possible. And so I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. We're certainly not expecting great amounts of traffic at certain times of the day. It will be continuous traffic throughout the day, and so I don't believe that that will cause any undue traffic congestion to the area. So that standard has been met. It preserves significant historical and architectural resources, none of which apply. And number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features, and that does not apply either. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. It certainly will by getting its business license. So with that, the standard has been met. Now, we do need to talk about a couple of conditions. Their hours they're asking for are 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Other businesses in that area go from 7 a.m. for the Taco Bell to 3 a.m. for Insomnia Cookies. So it seems as though a 10 to 11 seems right in the sweet spot, and that seems to make some sense. Some of the other more reasonable hours are Blaze Pizza, which is 11 to 11, and Jimmy John's, which is 11 to 9. But I could see that on hot days, ice cream could possibly go to 11. Also, the deliveries before 7 a.m. with deliveries no later than 9 a.m. seems to be what Dapper was looking for. So those seem to be the only conditions I'm seeing.
Also, the employee parking condition.
Sorry.
With Sherman in particular.
The boilerplate ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. And then the tap water and recycling. Just because that was not in as part of his application.
I move in the matter of 1724 Sherman Avenue, item 18ZMJV-0072, that we make a positive recommendation to...
Second.
Hang on.
8 or 7-2.
I think it's 7-2.
7-2.
Yeah.
7-2.
That we make a positive recommendation to City Council with the following conditions: that hours of operation be limited to 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., that employees be directed to park, to not take metered parking on Sherman Avenue, that the applicant followed the sustainability practices, including offering tap water and the other items included in that in those practices, including recycling practices, that deliveries ideally happen before 7 a.m. but no later than 9 a.m., and that the practices and business operations are in keeping with the testimony presented here this evening.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And with a vote of 6-0, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project. All right, moving on to 2200 Main. Melissa, will you read that into the record, please?
Donnelly Floater, architect, applies for a special use permit and major zoning relief to expand a daycare center child, the Infant Welfare Society of Evanston, in the R2 Single Family Residential District, zoning code section 6833, and a west interior side yard setback of 6.1 feet where 15 feet is required for non-residential structures, zoning code section 6837B3. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the recommending body and the City Council is the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use and major variation application submitted July 18th, 2018, plat of survey, site plans and elevations, rendering, zoning map of property, aerial view of property, image of property, and Dapper draft meeting minutes excerpt of August 15th, 2018.
Before we get started, I see an exhibit. Are we taking her exhibit?
It's the same rendering that was submitted.
We like to take anything you've ever...
Oh, you want to keep it?
Yeah, we take
No.
anything that you provide, you show us at a meeting.
I think if we have a
Well, I would request that you
I'll
not
take a picture
take
of it and
it.
send it to,
Alrighty.
send it to
They're
staff.
using it for fundraising purposes, so they would like to keep it.
Okay.
That's fine. For the record, we'll use the smaller version that we have.
Thank you.
And if you can give us your names and addresses and then tell us a little bit about your project, please.
Sure. My name is Stephen Vick. I'm the Executive Director of the Infant Welfare Society of Evanston at 2200 Main Street.
And I'm Donna Lee Floater, an Evanston resident, but I'm the architect for the project.
Great. Tell us a little bit about your project, please.
Sure. So the project is approximately 700 square feet of a current outdoor play space that has seen better days, and we are going to be turning into an indoor play space, hopefully. Gross motor space, play space for our existing number of children. We have very little indoor space for our infants and toddlers to not only play in inclement weather, but with our therapists, gross motor developmental specialists, they need space to work with the children indoors, and this will provide a lot of very positive indoor space for those children. 85% of our children are low income. We work with high needs populations, about 15% disabilities. So this indoor space will allow for that work to happen. The space we currently have is very small, and then again, when there's inclement weather, winter, rain, we have to take kids 2 at a time or 3 at a time in order to play because we just don't have the indoor space. So this will provide that opportunity. And it is on the west side of our building adjacent to the alley, the west northwest corner of our property.
I have a couple questions about it. So this area is currently outside, but you will not be increasing your area for the Infant Welfare Society?
No, it's, no, sure.
The building currently is, the lot coverage will not be exceeded. The limits on lot coverage will not be exceeded. And because the existing area that we plan to cover is already considered impermeable, there's no net change to the impermeable surfaces coverage for the property.
But the entire space will be indoors at that point?
Currently, it is an outdoor space that's a hard surface, and it will become indoor space.
Okay.
And it's 653 square feet, to be specific.
And it won't increase your clients, your kids, your parents?
No, we have existing 70 children. That will not increase. It's the same amount of classrooms, the same amount of children, same amount of teachers. There's no additional staff being hired and no additional clients being taken on.
Did I hear that this project was being supported by Community Development Block Grant funds from City of Evanston?
That's correct. We've been granted approximately $75,000 from CDBG for this project.
Thank you.
Does the expansion include what I would call the parallel parking spot that's just adjacent to this outside play area? Does it take in?
Because we're asking for, the two things we're asking for, one is the special use. We could address that pretty quickly. It's a non-residential use in a residential zoned area. It's been used by the Infant Welfare Society for 40 years in this same building, so we're not changing the use that's been present, but because we're doing this addition, the special use request comes into play. The other thing we're asking for is a side yard setback variance for that west side, and it would take away the parking space that's currently there.
And that's one parallel parking space?
Two.
There are two. So I drove by there today, looking at sort of the parking situation. Help talk to us about, how parking is used currently. Where do, parents, how does drop-off happen?
Sure.
Where do teachers park? What does your parking look like today?
Sure. So we're open from 7:30 to 5:30 p.m. So drop-off is really between 7:30 and I would say 9. It starts to trail off. Pickup usually starts around 4:30 and then trails off 5:30, sometimes a little late. But so those are the times where we have the most traffic, and parents pull in for a few minutes. They come in and get their children, may have a conversation with the teacher, and then drive away. So it's kind of ongoing pickup drop-off. During most of the day, there's empty parking spaces. Most of our staff do not park in front due to the parent drop-off and visitor coming by periodically. So currently, most staff park on all of the streets that are allowable parking, whether that's Hartree, whether that's Lee Street, whether that's Main Street, a couple other streets that are in the neighborhood that are all open parking. I do also want to share, we have a letter that I want to present to you all from our neighbor adjacent, Tom Ward, who owns Ward Manufacturing. If I can read it, and I'll present it to you as well. It says, Stephen, Ward Manufacturing is pleased to support the construction project at the Infant Welfare Society of Evanston. We are supportive of the zoning variance that would allow IWC to push out towards the alley adjacent to our property. In addition, though there is plenty of street parking, if there were an emergency need for parking, we would be willing to have IWC utilize 2 slots in our parking lot to make up for the loss of their 2 spaces. So and this is from Tom Ward, I'll present.
Thank you. We're going to mark that applicant's Exhibit A.
So I would share that though we're losing those 2 slots, if there were a need, our neighbor adjacent to the alley, the manufacturing base, has plenty of parking, and he is willing to have those slots used in his parking if needed. I would say there's plenty of parking in the neighborhood, but again, just to clarify, if we needed those, he would be willing to have 2 of our staff park in his lot.
And how-
I do have one question. The outside play area, is that being substituted somewhere else? Or is that just being eliminated completely?
It's being eliminated and turned into indoor. We have substantial outdoor space around the back and other side of our property, so there isn't a need for more outdoor space. It's more of the need for indoor space.
Okay.
Can you clarify, do drop-offs or pickups, do people park in Pittner Alley, or do they park in your front parking area?
No, no one parks. There are 2 staff that regularly park there. Parents do not park there. It's just a drive by and drop off in I think it's 9 slots that we have, I believe, or 8 or 10 slots that we have. So those are the slots that parents drop off or pick up, or visitors that are coming may park there, volunteers.
Any other questions? I have a question for staff. Why do we have a 15-foot side yard setback from alleys for this location?
Because of the configuration of the property line that abuts the alley is actually considered an interior side yard, which is why it has the 15-foot requirement. For a residential structure, it would be a 5-foot setback, but it's because it's a corner lot that also has an alley, so it's just an odd configuration.
Okay, so this is all set up because it's weird to have an alley as your side yard?
Basically. Traditionally, a typical property that would probably be considered the rear yard, but in this case and with the location of the existing building, zoning is considering it the side yard. So you could kind of think of it as if that was a single-family home, then it would be the rear yard abutting the alley, where you could have a detached garage that would be 3 feet off of that.
Because there's no alley behind it. There's no alley on the south end. There's only the alley on the west.
Right.
Okay. It's still weird.
Well, it's zoned R2, so we're a non-residential
Right.
use in a residential zone, and that's how the code reads.
I just don't understand why zoning would want you to be 15 feet off an alley. It's an alley. Anyway, I digress. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is anybody here to comment on 2200 Main Street? Oh, we got a couple.
Oh.
Come on up. Give us your name and address, please.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Susan Scully. My address is 836 Hartree. So the house that I reside in is immediately to the south of the daycare center. So it's the first house over. I did not see the plans. I'd like to take a look at it. It's nice having the daycare center right next door, and I think it's a great facility for the community to have. I just have a couple of concerns, and number one is the parking. So, and I don't know who parks, but a lot of the individuals, and I believe who work at the center park on the Hartree Street, and they park in front of our house. My mother is 86. She has a lot of people who come over and provide services, and when I come to visit her, I can't park in front of the house. They park on the block, they park across the street, they park in front of our house. So there are some problems with parking. So that's my real concern. I don't care if the kids throw the balls in our yard. They're very nice to have. Just my concern is the parking. And on occasion, somebody comes and does the lawn, and they put leaves. Sometimes they come under the fence that we have. But I would ask you to take a look and look at the parking situation, because it is cluttered, and I think we do have a problem with that.
Thank you. I'm going to recommend that you call your alderman and talk with them about what they can do to get you some parking in front of the space. Because if
Okay.
your mom is handicapped, she can get a handicapped space in front of her spot.
Okay,
In
she-
front of her house. So
Yep. Yeah.
coordinate with your alderman on that
Okay.
and see if they can help you out.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. Come on up.
I'm Janice Chapin. I live at 832 Hartree. It's 2 doors away from the daycare. They're wonderful neighbors, and just to what Susan was saying about the parking, it's intense. I mean, to have a delivery during the day, it's a dead-end cul-de-sac. So to make that roundabout, and there's really no parking, and it goes down the block. We love our neighbors, but it's a little bit of an inconvenience. And getting Barbara a handicap space, and I could apply for a handicap space. Our neighbor next to us has a handicap space. That's just not going to work. You can't have whole half of the block as a handicap space. I don't think if they could spread out maybe on some of the other streets, that would be great. But they're wonderful neighbors. They take care of the skunks, and they do everything that's right about them. And it's wonderful to hear the children, but it's just the parking. One question I have is, how will they deal with the garbage pickup? Because I know the garbage pickup is right by that space. How is that going to change at all, where your garbage cans are? Or
They'll answer when you're done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you ask all your questions, I'll
Okay.
give them a chance to come up and answer and address
Okay.
parking and all that good stuff.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for coming out. Appreciate it. Do you guys want to come up and address those two concerns, parking and garbage?
So I can start with the garbage. That is going to remain there. There's not going to be any change. So the expansion will still allow where the staircase is off the side of the building. There will still be space for garbage pickup, and so that will not change.
So the dumpsters are between the end of the stair, the column supporting the
That's
stair and the
correct.
other
On the
building?
west side, along
Okay.
the alley.
And that's where it currently is, so
Okay.
that's not going to change.
So there'll be
at
no
all.
change to that? Okay.
I guess in terms of the other question about parking on Hartree, what I can do is ask staff to park on the other side of Main. I know it's open parking, so we can't deny them to park there, but I respect our neighbors and want to try to be a good neighbor, and so certainly I can talk to staff about parking on the other side of Main. I think there's parking on Lee Street. There's another couple streets that they can park on, and so I can certainly do that and ask staff to try to move from the current existing space. Obviously, some people may park on Hartree. I certainly agree that if there's a handicap need, they should get a handicap space in front of their house. I think that makes a lot of sense. But we can certainly try to talk to staff about spreading out a little bit more. I think there's ample parking all over the neighborhood. It's certainly closest on Hartree, but I could certainly do that as the executive director. I can make that request of our staff to look for parking on other sides of Main.
How many staff do you have in the building at a time?
So at any one time, I would say we may have 20 staff in the building. There are some rotations that happen in terms of during the day where there's some transitions from early shift to late shift, but I would say we probably don't move past 20 at any one time.
And how many parking spaces do you have in that lot there?
There are 10 parking spaces.
But per your testimony, staff does not park there, so that can be reserved for parent pickup and drop off, correct?
And not all of our staff have cars, so many of our staff take public transportation. So not all of our staff are car drivers.
I'm curious, there's a church just on the next block on the north side of the street. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for some, some sharing of facilities with the church on the north side of Main Street, if you've considered something like that, if there might be an opportunity for...
I'm trying to think of the church you're referring to.
It's sort of a storefront
Right.
type church.
Next to the
On
auto
the
body.
north side, next to
Oh,
the
yes.
body shop.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, I can't tell from what I'm looking at how much parking they have. I'm just wondering if there are other business uses in the corridor that might have parking available so that, so that your parking isn't spilling over onto the residential streets as intensively.
Yeah, I have had a conversation with Alderman Braithwaite, and he was going to reach out to the Food for Less parking area,
Yeah.
which has ample parking, and
Yeah.
so there may be a conversation that we can have with the owner of that larger space. There's parking spots just on the east side of that lot by the gas station where that are almost always open, and so he was going to support us in reaching out to that owner as well to see if there could be spots that we could use in that regard.
I think that makes a lot of sense because obviously you want to be a good neighbor. And we know you're not intensifying, you're not increasing your staff, but if you're causing some grief for the neighbors, it's good to take care of that and to be that good neighbor. And so to work with the alderman to try and find some additional parking would be a good faith effort here.
Yeah, I 100%
I would
agree.
remind you also that the letter you submitted from Mr. Ward offers you 2 spaces. I'd suggest you take those.
Yeah. He offered them, take them. Okay, do you guys have any final comments, any summation? You don't have to, it's okay. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to close the record and comments from the board.
I think it's an important service that they provide in the community, and I support the project.
I agree with that. Also, so in terms of the special use, it's an existing business that needs the special use to continue to operate as they have. And again, I think that's a no-brainer. In terms of the zoning variations, specifically because the existing outdoor space is already impervious, this will have no material change on the property. It will take impervious space and essentially cover it. And so I believe that the standards for variation will be met as well.
I would agree with that. And besides, with our standards, they are doing really the minimal thing to convert this into more usable space. So I would say they comply with the standards regarding this minimal variance. The project is really nice, and we have to support it.
I support the expansion of this community partner, and I look forward to the successful completion and funding of your project.
I'm in favor.
Great, thank you very much. I agree generally with the comments of my colleagues. I do think we do need to solve that parking problem. They may not be your employees, but to the extent that you can help the situation, it's always just going to be helpful. So we have 2 things here. We have a special use because we're increasing the intensity of the special use, and we have a major variation. So 16 standards. Let's go through the 9 for the standards for special uses. Number 1, it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is, so that standard has been met. Number 2, it's in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. One of the policies of the comprehensive general plan is to retain and enhance the diversity of businesses. And this is certainly a business that we want to keep because it provides a very vital service to the community. And so what we can do to keep them is allow them to enlarge and make their space functional for what their needs are today. So that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. There's been testimony that although we're increasing the size of the special use and therefore the intensity of the special use, there's actually not going to be an increase in either staff or students. And so we're not increasing anything beyond what is there now. And so I don't believe that there will be any negative cumulative effect from that. So that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. From testimony, there is some comments that they are a good neighbor to the neighborhood and a better neighbor once they solve their parking problem. And that certainly a business that provides a valuable service increases the value of property in the neighborhood. So that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. It is not asking for more use of any services that the city provides, so that standard certainly has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. It certainly doesn't cause undue traffic congestion. There's been no testimony that there's a problem with pickups or drop-offs or any of that sort. It's really sort of a parking issue, which the applicants have agreed to look at and try to solve. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. This is a quirky building, and I think that addition is a nice addition to the quirk of it. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features, which is not applicable. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation, which it has. So that standard has been met. So if we can have a motion for a special use. Do we want to put any conditions on that, such as dealing with the parking? Oh, good Lord, I don't even know what their hours of operation. Can we just say that everything is the same as their original special use, with the exception of?
They are legally non-conforming with no special use.
Okay. Wow, we didn't talk about business hours. So
Open?
I don't know. So I'm going to say it's a 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
5:30 is what they said, 7 to 5:30. Yeah.
So you want to go 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., give them the ability to have a thing at night? 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And how do you want to deal with parking?
How about require that the employees use the parking the letter that was passed around, ward parking?
Manufacturing,
Ward
yep.
manufacturing. Could we do that?
I think that we want to go further in suggesting, encouraging that additional conversations are had, with the aldermen, with other property owners in the corridor to see what kind of creative arrangements can be made here so that all that parking's not absorbed on the, adjacent residential blocks. I'm not sure how exactly to phrase that, to what extent we want to condition it, but I think it's an important piece.
I think like you just said.
Okay.
Okay, so in the matter of 18 ZMJV 0067, 2200 Main Street, we are the determining body. I recommend that we approve the...
This is a special use, so this is going to city. This is a recommendation to special council. We're going to do the zoning variance next.
Oh, okay. So I recommend that we approve the special use to city council with the following
recommend.
conditions.
What was that? Weird. All right.
Okay, now?
Yeah, sorry, we're just going for a recommendation.
A recommendation
to city council.
to city council to approve the special use with the conditions being hours of operation 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The parking being what, Lisa?
That the applicant work with the aldermen and nearby property owners in the Main Street corridor to find creative parking solutions so that the employee parking is not exclusively absorbed on nearby residential streets.
Yeah, that. Any other conditions?
That the testimony be...
That testimony be in concurrence with testimony received here at this hearing.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with a vote of 6-0, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval for your special use. Let's talk about your standards for variations now. There are 7 of those. Number 1, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining neighborhoods. We've not heard any testimony that there is an adverse effect. In fact, the testimony of the neighbors is that they are a good neighbor and that they add value to the neighborhood. Also, the addition is so small and on the alley side such that it won't actually have any effect on the neighbors. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. One of the intents of the zoning ordinance is certainly to allow businesses to expand to meet their current needs based on their changing clientele and the needs of their clients. So certainly we need to give them an opportunity to provide additional space for the needs of their students. So that standard has been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. It's actually, as I've heard staff tell, it's strange to have a side alley on a business lot. Yeah, on a lot that a business is on. And so that side yard setback for a business in a residential neighborhood is 15 feet versus the 5 foot for a residential, for a house in that same area. And so the ability for them to be able to expand to meet their needs is severely limited. So I do believe that that standard has been met.
I agree. I would just add that because this is a non-residential use in an R2 neighborhood, but since the adjacent property, if you will, is industrial, I don't feel like the intent of that limitation is served by enforcing it.
Well put. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. I don't believe that they would be able to add this area under any circumstances. If the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. And so that actually is more of a hardship since they won't be able to provide that indoor space for their students, which is necessary. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property or there is a public benefit. I forget, are you guys a 501c3? You are a 501c3, so they have no desire to make any income. But there is certainly a benefit to having a daycare in the neighborhood that provides care for disadvantaged and some lower income children. And having the right sort of resources for kids is important. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. Don't know, I can't remember how long this building has been in this location, but certainly longer than when the 40 plus years. So the property was platted and zoned long before that, and so I don't believe that they've had any part in creating the difficulty. So that standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They've been able to not increase their impervious surface by taking an impervious surface and just putting a roof over on it, which is the net the same thing. So that certainly is the minimum change necessary. They've also managed to put it on a side of the building that will affect none of the neighbors and just put it in a location on the alley which has no direct impact to anybody. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Apparently because we have a special use and a major zoning relief, We're offering a recommendation again to City Council. We are not the determining body for this.
I move in the matter 18 ZMJV-0109 regarding the property at 2200 Main Street that we recommend that City Council grant the major variations requested, subject to the condition that the property be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And with a vote of 6-0, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project. Thank you. Moving on to 348 Custer Avenue. Scott, will you read that into the record, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the public. Graciela Lopez, property owner, applies for major zoning relief to convert existing 2-flat to a 3-dwelling unit multifamily dwelling within the R5 residential district. The applicant requests variations for a lot area of 3,993 square feet, where 4,500 square feet is required, a lot width of 33 feet, where 50 feet is required, and to provide 3 off-site parking spaces where 4 are required for a 3-dwelling unit multifamily dwelling within the R5 district. City staff and DAPR both recommend approval of the requests. A summary of the development and the requirements are in the staff report, in addition to the variation application, zoning analysis, plat survey, plans, and then additional information about the property. Concludes a summary of the staff memo, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Ms. Lopez, would you give us your name and address? And, start with your name and address.
Graciela Lopez, and I live at 348 Custer and Evanston.
Excellent. And if you wouldn't mind telling us about your project, please.
Well, there was a fire in November in the basement of my apartment. So when the inspectors came over to check it out, after it was clean, they recommended that I apply for a legal unit because he had the space, the 2 exits, the windows. Originally I applied for a 2-bedroom apartment, but apparently because of the units of water that are needed, I would need to change the pipe system or something like that.
The water service size?
The water service, right. Yep. So then what I decided to do is to apply just like for 1-bedroom apartment. And instead of having 2 bathrooms, it would only be 1. And the other half of the basement would be used as storage. And there's a laundry room there and electrical system and that. So I'm applying for 1-bedroom apartment in the basement.
How long have you owned the property?
For about 30 years. Since 1989.
How many families live on the property now?
Myself and 1 couple that lives upstairs.
So you rent out one of your units already?
Yes.
And what do you rent that out for?
How much?
Yeah, what's the rent?
They pay me $1,200.
Sorry, did you say 400?
$1,200.
$1,200.
Yes, $1,200.
And is that a 2-bedroom unit or a 1-bedroom unit?
It is a 2-bedroom.
That's a 2-bedroom unit?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's market rate in your neighborhood, or do you think that's below market?
Well, I'm not up to date in terms of the market value, but I was talking to my neighbor who's a real estate broker, and she was making fun of me. She said that that's way below market value. She says that's what she gets for a 1-bedroom.
And how much are you intending on renting the basement unit for?
I do not know yet. Just it has been such a long process, and there are lots of ifs. So I haven't, I guess I would have to find out what the market value is, and maybe a little bit less, so it can be affordable.
Can you speak to the amount of parking that you have on site and how many cars are utilized by those that currently dwell on the property?
Usually I'm the only one my car is usually the only one that is parked in the back. I ask the tenants, if they wanted to park in the garage because I do have a garage, a two-car garage. And they said, no, it's very convenient to park in and out in front of the house. So they don't use it that much.
So remind me, you have a two-car garage, and then you have an open spot at the back.
Right.
And you're how many blocks from the nearest train station? I guess it's the South Boulevard train station, right?
You're right. I'm at 348 Custer, so the next block would be the South Boulevard, and that's where the train station is at. And then there's also Howard on the south side, Howard Street.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
Before the fire, there were 2 apartment units, yours and someone else's in the building.
Well, my son, I have a 21-year-old son that has a bedroom downstairs.
So prior to the fire, your son was living in the basement?
He stays there occasionally. He also has a bedroom upstairs.
Upstairs on the first floor?
On the first floor, yes.
And the second floor is rented to another
out.
family?
Yes.
Okay, and so with the project that you're proposing, you would rent out the entire basement to someone else?
No, half of it, 1 bedroom.
1 bedroom.
The other half is storage and the laundry room, and the furnace and the electrical system and that.
And so how many bedrooms are in your unit?
2.
Okay.
2 bedrooms. And upstairs is 2 bedrooms as well.
I have a question for staff. The City of Evanston's TOD ordinance in terms of parking, how far does that extend around train stations?
It varies a little bit, but this parcel is not within the TOD area for parking.
It's got to be pretty close, though, right? I mean, it says it's 0.3 miles away, if Google's accurate.
Yeah, it's probably about a block from the extent of the TOD area.
Okay.
It looks like about in the 400 block of Custer is the extent of that.
Okay, thank you.
Did anyone in staff ever talk to you about this being an affordable unit for 10 years?
Mm-mm.
Would you be amenable to making this an affordably priced unit for 10 years?
Well, what does that mean? What does that exactly mean?
That's an excellent question that I don't necessarily know all the facts on. So I'm going to let Melissa answer that question.
Okay.
Nope, Scott. Sorry. Going to let Scott answer that question.
So as Chair Burns points out, there have been a couple of other instances recently where an applicant has requested for more density than was allowed within the zoning district, and as a condition of approval for that increase in density, the applicant has agreed to an agreement with the city to limit the affordability level for a minimum duration of 10 years so that it's affordable to someone who's making a maximum of 80% of the area median income. And there are tables that will spell out what the maximum rent levels can be for that, depending on bedroom size and family size for that.
But that's something certainly staff can help her with, right? So it's not like you have to be a master of all the facts and figures. I believe that Sarah can help her, right? Determine what the rent should be based on all of those factors.
Yes, our housing and grant staff can certainly help with that.
Okay. So is that something
that I will consider? Yeah.
You would be amenable to? Because
sure.
You know that here in Evanston we've got a problem with affordable housing, and as we're allowing people to add housing to their locations, we'd like to get as much of affordable housing as well. And
sure.
I think yours is an excellent location for that. And because there are so many units like yours,
mm-hmm.
when we start to apply that, give that to you, right, the ability to put a unit in the basement, now your neighbors are going to want to put a unit in the basement.
Right.
And so now if we can have all of that as being affordable housing, I think we're really going to start to make a dent, theoretically, in the city.
Yes, I believe so.
All right. So is there any more questions from anybody on the board?
Ms. Lopez, I was wondering if the apartment, are you fixing that for your son? Is that what you intend to do?
No, I'm not fixing it for my son.
Oh, okay.
Because he's going to stay living with you. The intention
Right.
is to rent it, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
I don't think you ever actually answered the question. How many cars are represented by the current occupants of your building? In other words, how many cars between you and your son and the other family?
The neighbors have one car, and but like I said, they don't use the garage.
I understand.
They
How many
have-
cars?
And I have one car, and that's it.
And
We
does
have
your
two
son
cars.
have a car also?
He recently acquired one.
So
yes.
3 cars.
Yeah, but he parks on the street. He knows that he shouldn't park in the back.
Why shouldn't he park in the back?
Because I think it's a space for the tenants. So he has no problem parking on the street.
Would you have a problem if we asked him to park on the in the back?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank
just-
you.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions?
Any other questions?
Alderman Rainey, do you intend to speak to this case? Oh,
She's the deciding body.
gotcha. I wonder if, notwithstanding the fact that you're deciding whether you have any insight as to whether there's adequate street parking in this neighborhood.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here who would like to speak to 348 Custer? Okay. What are we doing here? These are all major variations. Thoughts from anybody on the board? I guess I feel pretty strongly about making this an affordable unit. We've set that precedent recently with a couple of these applications where people are getting variances to add either to make their coach house bigger or those sorts of things, or to build the one last week in your neck of the woods, right? That where they put it in the basement, where we make those affordable units. So I think that there's sort of a precedent that we've started there, and I think that we should continue down that path.
I agree.
I agree.
How about that end of the table?
I don't. It's not so clear cut to me. I do think that the condition of making it an affordable unit is a worthy one to consider among the factors, but I also don't think that it's a great idea to start a precedent of converting single or two-family homes into 3-unit apartments in Evanston. So I'm struggling with this one a little bit more than that.
Okay.
Are you struggling with the proposal or struggling with the condition of the affordable, making this, conditioning it as an affordable unit for 10 years?
No, that condition mitigates against my concern, but I'm not sure whether it gets me over the hump.
Well, we have to have in consideration the proposal for affordable unit, because this kind of weighs nicely into the suggestion. And I would point the other thing that one of the things is the parking. 3 cars are good for 3 dwelling units, no matter that we prefer to have 4. That's for sure. But still, 3 cars for 3 dwelling units is
Well,
it's okay.
so let me. Sorry, I may not have spoken clearly. I would not vote for this project at all, but for the condition to make that unit affordable.
Yeah.
And so even with that condition, I'm still on the fence. I think the parking thing is a big problem. Yes, sort of like mentally, 3 units, 3 parking spaces seems like enough, but the way it works in the ordinance is you look at the number of bedrooms, right? So for a two-bedroom unit, the assumption in the zoning ordinance is that two-bedroom unit accounts for
It's
one and a half cars.
Yeah.
So now you've got two-bedroom units in this building and one-bedroom unit, and that's why it would require not 4 cars, but 4 1/3 cars, if you will. So it's not it's more than just one car, and they've already got 3 cars, and it would be a fair assumption that someone else moving into that basement unit would have another car. So I'm guessing there will be 4 cars. That said, there's testimony that there's adequate street parking, but it's not about necessarily whether there's adequate parking. The ordinance requires a certain number of spots to run with the property, and here we're already making a stretch for converting this into a 3-bedroom, 3-unit dwelling. So I don't know. I honestly, I'm leaning, in my opinion, I'm leaning against.
Can I have clarification from staff? We've heard that it sounds like 1 block away from a TOD, a designated TOD area. If it fell into that TOD area, then what would be the parking requirements?
With that, 3 parking spaces would be required to be 0.55 per unit or per bedroom.
So, Scott, in my mind, the location of this, I hear your points and I understand them, but I think the location of it relative to the nearby train station is something to be considered. I also think, even aside from conditioning this as an affordable unit, according to the city's standards of affordability under 10 years, just by creating additional dwelling unit in the basement is by nature going to be more affordable than a lot of the dwelling units in Evanston. So I think there's public benefit in that. So that's something that I'm considering as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. The potential public benefit of an affordable unit mitigates against the stated, at least the application's stated desire to obtain additional income from adding another unit for rent.
And while I hear you, Scott, when you say that you don't want to create a trend for people to come in and take 2-unit buildings and turn them into 3-unit buildings, I agree. We should not create a trend for that. However, I would like to create the trend that if they are going to do that, that they consider every time affordable, even if we have to nudge them a little bit or let them know about it. Like this lady wasn't really educated about it, and maybe now she would consider that. That I support.
And I believe that if it's, she's bringing the building into compliance, because that bedroom downstairs at one point was still being used.
Right, in an unsafe manner.
Correct, but not just in an unsafe manner. You could consider her son that was living in that apartment also as a separate family already. So if she's bringing it into compliance with the city, if we attach the amendment that she uses that as affordable housing, which now helps out the city by creating that space, I think that's more of a public benefit in the end.
So I still agree with all of what you're saying about it being a potential public benefit. I don't agree at all that her son living in the basement was like having a 3rd family. It's not.
I do.
The ordinance doesn't consider it that way. He's related to her. He's the same family.
Yes.
He's her son.
Yes.
So
and no.
So it's a conversion. It's a conversion to a 3-family dwelling, which is a legal conversion. It's not just like you're talking about functionally. It's like having, it's another body, but legally it's not at all, and the ordinance considers it separately.
Have we heard from any neighbors on this matter in either favor or opposition?
Neither way.
A thing to point out is that city staff is currently looking at revisions to the inclusionary housing ordinance. Some of those revisions include that for any required affordable unit, as required by the inclusionary housing ordinance, so that would not be this project, but any affordable unit would not have a parking requirement at all, just to take into account.
Interesting. Okay. All right, so I think I know where everybody stands. So I'm going to address these 7 major standards for a major variation, because that's what we're dealing with here. Okay, so number 1, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. Since this particular unit would go into the basement of an existing 2-flat, there's no additional lot area that's taken up. There's no additions to the building. I don't think that there's any effect on the neighbors, on the adjacent neighbors. There's no change in the lot area. There'll be no perception of the neighbors that there's a decrease there, and that's somehow substandard. That the lot width is somehow substandard. And so I do believe that standard. So from that perspective, that standard has been met. From the parking requirement, there's been testimony that not all 3 spots in the back are used right now, that there is 1 car parking in a 2-car garage, and that the other tenants and the other owner, family member, park out front for their convenience. So there'll be no change from that perspective on having as to having an adverse effect on the neighborhood. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance certainly is trying to provide for housing, adequate housing throughout the city. Thank you. Conserve and enhance the taxable value. Okay, and by adding a unit to this building, we're increasing the value of this property and the taxable value of that property to the city, so that standard has been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. In this particular case, the lot size and the house have been there for a long time, and nobody's suggesting an idea of making the building bigger. Sorry. And if she was to make this bigger and put a unit in a different location, that would have a bigger impact on the neighbors. So I do believe that standard has been met. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of...
Sorry, I'm going to disagree with the prior
okay.
finding,
Yep.
just for the record.
Yep. Do you want to tell me why?
Yes, I don't think that the difficulty here is peculiar to the property. I think it's peculiar to the applicant who wants to convert the property into something that it wasn't.
Thank you. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. Again, the building can't be altered to add that 3rd unit without causing other problems from a zoning perspective. And so I do think that there is a practical difficulty here with creating a 3rd unit in another location. So I believe that standard has been met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property or there is a public benefit. There is testimony that there There is certainly a desire to get additional income from the property, but the public benefit here would be that the unit would be an affordable unit as determined by the Affordable Housing Coordinator with the City of Evanston for 10 years. And so I do believe that that standard has been met from that perspective.
I'm going to disagree on that one.
Yep.
I believe that while there is some public benefit, that it's outweighed by the desire to extract additional income from the property.
Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The owner has indicated that she's lived there for 30 years and that the property has not changed in that time, and that it was platted and the building located prior to her owning the property. So I believe that that standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Certainly adding a unit, an affordable housing unit into an existing building where we can actually take advantage of infrastructure and walls and ceilings and roofs and all that good stuff is the least deviation necessary in order to be able to provide that additional unit. So I do believe that that standard has been met. So with that, I do think that we do need to put a condition on this, that if this is only in the case of it being an affordable unit for 10 years. Any other conditions? Do we want to condition that the family has to park in the back?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about.
It seems crazy. Nobody makes me park in my garage. Well, how can we make her park in her garage?
How do you enforce it?
Right, you can't enforce it, and nobody makes me park in my garage. If I want to park on the street, I get to park on the street. So it seems a little bit wrong that we make her park in her garage, but I'm open to thoughts on that.
Strong suggestion.
A strong suggestion.
That's what I said.
I think the law of supply and demand is going to take care of that.
Yeah.
If there's no parking on the street, then all of a sudden the garage becomes an attractive option. If
That's
there's
right.
parking on the street and she or her tenants see that as a more attractive option, I don't think that's a condition that we need to apply.
Excellent reasoning. Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, so who's going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion in the matter of 348 Custer Avenue, ZBA case 18ZMGV-0060. I move that we make a positive recommendation to City Council allowing major zoning relief to convert an existing 2-flat to a 3-dwelling unit, with the condition that the newly created basement unit be determined, be rented out as an affordable unit as defined by the City of Evanston's staff in this matter.
Is that for 10 years at the 80% AMI
10
level?
years at 80% AMI.
That would be consistent with the previous approvals.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And with a vote of 5-1, you will go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project. Thank you. Sure. Moving on to 1943 Sherman Avenue. Feels like we've been here for 3 hours already.
Doesn't it?
But we are flying through. I'm just tired of talking, and I'm sure
It's
you all
only been
are.
2.5.
It's 1.5. You guys are just tired of hearing me talk. I'm tired of talking.
Second.
Melissa, will you read this into the record, please?
Angie Radman, property owner, applies for major zoning relief to convert a single-family residence to a 3-unit multiple-family residence in the R5 General Residential District. The applicant requests a 22-foot rear yard setback for a 3-story stair yard obstruction where 22.5 feet is required, zoning code section 6419, and an increase of 0 additional parking spaces where 3 additional parking spaces are required, for a total of 1 parking space on site where 5 parking spaces are required for a 3-unit multiple family residence. Zoning Code Section 61635, Table 16B. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the recommending body, and the City Council is the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include variation application submitted April 18th, 2018. That's not correct. Zoning analysis, plat of survey, site plans and elevations, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, Dapper draft meeting minutes excerpt of August 15th, 2018, and Dapper meeting minutes excerpt of May 9th, 2018, which was from the previous proposal that is now withdrawn.
Help me out with what was in the previous proposal. What got withdrawn?
The previous proposal included adding 3 parking spaces so that there was no parking variation requested for the number of spaces. There were variations for the drive aisle,
Correct.
I believe.
Right.
And the project proceeded to the Dapper Committee where multiple neighbors attended and were quite opposed to the project as it was, and instead requested that the applicant try again with no added parking.
So that was the scheme where the whole backyard got paved, and you'd have to do like a slide puzzle to get a car out.
Correct.
And you actually got neighbors to show up at a Dapper meeting in the middle of the day on a weekday.
Correct.
Okay. Wow, you made them mad. All right, tell us about your project. Your name and address first, and then tell us about the project, please.
My name is Sean Jones. I'm the attorney representing the property owner. My address for my office is
Yep.
708 Church Street, Suite 235, downtown Evanston, 60201. This project has been student housing for decades. This is not a single-family home. This has been rented to students for at least 20 years. We have been dealing with the city, and we are currently in Skokie on some violation issues. The city, Michelle Mason Cup, suggested that we need to either apply as a rooming house or apply as a multifamily. This is R5, so it supports a 3-flat. We determined to convert this to a 3-flat. We're taking what was 9 bedrooms, dropping it to a 2-3-2, 3 different units. So there'll be 7 bedrooms in this property. This is obviously very close to the Northwestern campus. The current students don't have any issue with parking. Right now there is 1 spot in front. It's really more like 1.5, and they can squeeze 2 cars in there if need be, but there is no issue with parking currently. We did come forward with an alternative plan, and we are going to squeeze the parking needed into this spot. By putting an aisle on the other side, taking out the existing, we were going to be very close on permeable surface. Now we have no issues with permeable surface. As indicated at Dapper, the neighbors were very much opposed to the parking configuration because driving back behind would put headlights shining right into their property, and they did not like that at all, understandably, plus fumes. And actually, one of the neighbors is here to speak to this as well. We are taking this property legal. This has been an inappropriate use for a while, but now we're taking it legal. It's going to be a 3-flat. The configuration of this property is such, with no alley behind it, with no parking other than the 1 spot up front available. It has always been this way. On one side is another multi-family student home. I believe it's a rooming house. And on the other side, we have another multifamily condo development. This is sandwiched in between 2 multifamilies. It is right on the Northwestern campus and has been rented to students for at least 20 years.
Does the applicant own the property
Yes.
outright?
Yes.
Is there a mortgage on it?
I believe there is a mortgage on it right now, yes.
Do you know what the monthly mortgage payments are?
I do not.
Does the rental income exceed the monthly mortgage?
As far as I know, but I don't know. I don't have access to the mortgage.
How much is the cost of repairs that the applicant has stated it can't afford without this additional rental income?
There's no additional rental income. In fact, the rental income will go down because there will be less bedrooms.
If the relief is not granted, then there will be less rental income, I should say, because it's an illegal use, as you've said. So I guess I'll rephrase the question. How much repair is needed here?
The repair is not excessive. The conversion is what we need to do. We need to take the current property and convert it. There are some cosmetic repairs to the exterior. You have a list of the repairs to the exterior. One of the conditions at DAPR was to provide you with that list. There have been concerns from the neighbors about the condition exterior, and we are correcting all of those issues.
What's the cost of that?
I don't know the cost of that.
Is there a date certain by which the applicant could commit to completing those repairs if the relief is granted?
I will consult with the contractors and get a date certain. It is contingent upon contractors and their availability. I don't know what their...
I know, but my concern and where I'm headed here is knowing how a lot of these student houses are maintained is granting the relief and then having it continue to be ignored in disrepair.
Understood. We have been working very closely with Angelique Schnoor and the city property standards. I meet with her regularly to discuss this property. We believe this is the best solution because it will be completely rehabbed. We're taking 2 bedrooms away, converting them to kitchens. We're adding the stairwell on back that's required by a fire code. The stairwell, in order to be compliant, does extend 6 inches closer to the rear property line, which is one of our variations. But it now would empty into the backyard and not into a paved area.
Can you clarify the number of bedrooms currently and then the number of bedrooms regardless of units, just net bedrooms now versus net bedrooms after renovations?
9 currently, 7 after renovations.
Sean, does the applicant, do they own the house to the north of that? The same?
No.
It looks like it's almost on the same property. They don't own that.
Yeah, they're next door, but no, they do not own that property next.
So the only way to even get the parking was to go through their backyard.
There was a side yard.
Yeah.
We had to make it narrower than is required by code. It would have had to be 9 feet instead of 12 feet.
Okay.
So we would have had a driveway on the side yard.
Oh.
That's how we would have gotten back. We did not need an easement to take a part of their property, but they didn't want a sidewalk, driveway back there either.
No. Okay.
How far back have those property standards violations gone? How many years?
I can only tell when I became involved. So I became involved.
Is the owner not here tonight?
The owner's not here tonight, no. No, I became involved in March or April 17, I believe.
Yeah. March of 17.
I believe that's the case. It may be.
Okay.
It may be earlier.
So there have been violations since then?
Well, the violations were corrected, but the city then says you need to either turn this into a rooming house or convert it to a legal multifamily. And so those steps have been taken.
And the reason you want to be a legal multifamily versus a rooming house is?
I don't believe that a rooming house would have been supported by the neighbors of the community.
And do you know how long the owners own the house? I feel like I want to talk to the owners.
20.
I feel like I don't know how to make a decision without being able to talk to the owners because I think we're not getting all of the information.
The owner's in a trust, and the mother of the property caretaker. So Angie is, I believe, his mother, and she is infirm. He is taking care of the property.
I missed that. Can you explain that again?
The property is owned by a trust.
Got it.
The beneficiary is Angie Radman,
Okay.
which is Mark's mother.
Okay.
And she is infirm.
Got it.
He manages the property.
So who's got her POA?
I don't know that there is I am the client. They are my client. They are my client. There's no POA. I am the attorney.
One additional question is the son, does he live locally?
Not in Evanston. I believe I want to say
Within an hour?
within an hour. Yes, I want to say it's not Waukegan. It's farther south.
How long has Mark taken care of the property?
Approximately 20 years.
Okay, so if we were to continue this and have Mark give testimony, we could get whatever facts you're not able to attest to since you became involved only a year and a half ago.
I can't speculate as to what testimony could be.
Is there someone other than Mark that would have more factual information than he?
I don't believe so. There is an architect involved in this. The architect would be able to address, but that doesn't sound like the type of issues you're asking about.
Right. Right. I don't think architecture's our issue. I think it's how the house was maintained and in going to be maintained. And
Does Mark stand to be the next beneficiary of the
Yes.
trust?
Yes, it's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. It strikes me that we should try to set a
I would agree.
continuance and get Mark here.
do you guys sort of have that?
I agree.
I think there's enough out there that I'd like to ask Mark, and I know you want to ask Mark some stuff, that it seems to make sense to continue it until he's available. Are you able to say when he's available?
Well,
or-
obviously, I can't stand here right now. I
Yep.
do want to point out that this is coming back up in Skokie, and that the city legal department expects some decision. But
It's coming up in Skokie in court?
yes, on property standards issues, yes.
And what is the exact case that's being heard in Skokie?
There were multiple, so initially, the case that was filed by the city was to permit access to the property for inspections. I became involved, access was granted. There's been no problem with access since then. The city has had constant access whenever they've asked for it since then. So that's the case. But growing out of that case was the city's desire to take this property and put it in a legal status. So we have been continuing with this process since I became involved.
When is the next hearing in Skokie?
It is in September, and I don't have that in front of me right now.
And is that for status? What's the nature of the next hearing?
It is for status on this proceeding.
Okay. I mean,
On this
it
proceeding.
strikes me that you could tell the judge that you've taken steps in that and request that the status be continued to another month so that this can be heard with the witness.
I could certainly tell the judge whatever the result of this hearing is, absolutely.
Who wants to make a motion? Anybody?
I will. I move in the matter ZBA 18 ZMJV-0073 regarding the property at 1943 Sherman Avenue, that we keep the case open and continue it until such time as Mark Radman, is his last name Radman?
Yes.
Mark Radman can be present to give factual testimony.
Second.
Hang on, there's going to be an amendment.
Nope.
September 25th.
Slightly amend and say I move that we continue until September 25th and that Mr. Radman be here if he's able, and if not, that another date after that be coordinated with staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with that, we are going to continue this to the next meeting. Thank you.
Would you like to hear from the neighbor who sat here the whole time?
Yeah. Can I get a motion to reopen?
I'd like to make a motion to
Want to speak
reopen.
to it? Do you want to speak tonight? Sure. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to reopen the case.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Please tell us. Start with your name and address, please.
Hi.
Thanks for coming out, by the way.
You're welcome. I'm John Carver. I'm president of the Condo Association in
So you are
1939
next door
Sherman.
to the south.
Yes,
Okay. And how many units are in that building?
there are 8.
Okay.
Okay. And as this gentleman has noted, we've had significant concerns about this building for a long time. And a lot of it has to do with property condition. A lot of it actually has to do with life safety. When you have 9 bedrooms, in a single-family home that is of the dated and poor condition without sprinklers. It's a major concern, and this has nothing to do about the fact that it's occupied by students. If anything, that makes it even more concerning from a life safety perspective. So that is something that is on all of our minds. We as the attorney indicated, we completely agree that this is a situation where there should not be parking in the backyard. It would be a nightmare between the two houses, cars driving in at night and trying to park in this maze that would be created back there. Also, if you put a surface in place where water was running off, that actual backyard is slightly higher than our front entrance, so they would have to put in adequate draining, which I think would be cost prohibitive. In general, we're very, very supportive of what is being proposed. I applaud your efforts to look beyond the attorney for ownership and speak directly to ownership. Because this is a condition which we've seen has just lasted far too long. The city has gotten a runaround. Everybody has gotten a runaround. And so our concern is not about the commitment that they're making to improve, which we applaud and we're very, very excited about. Our concern is that history has proven that either there is not capital available to do it, or the job that they do is inadequate. I would encourage you, when you have a conversation with ownership, I would encourage you to find out who actually is going to be doing the work. Is it qualified workers, or is it ownership where they're just bringing in a couple of handymen to do the work? That's what I think we have seen in the past, and it's been a little bit disturbing. The last question that I would raise,
it sounded to me like there's a plan to use a contractor for this, because the attorney spoke to not being having to touch base with the contractor on the schedule.
Okay.
But I also think when we remove to close this, that we also request that the applicant come back with a schedule for completing the work. A proposed schedule.
And also be able to answer your questions about the cost of the proposed improvements.
And I think it would be very, very helpful if the architect came back with some sketches that show what is envisioned for the property, particularly as it relates to the back stairwell. It obviously is needed. We have no problems with a back stairwell, but obviously we want it to fit the hopefully provide good aesthetics.
It won't.
Well, it
will be as basic as is necessary for life safety.
The house needs that life safety feature. So, thank you.
Can you mentioned something, which is this has been going on an ongoing issue for you guys as the neighbors. How long has this been going on?
Well,
Your recollection.
the building is now 15 years old. Our building.
We're a new building.
Our building is now 15 years old, and I would say pretty early on there was requests to repaint the building, to fix rotted wood, and they've done some things. They've painted, but it's painting the pig, so to speak. And the work that is now proposed, I think, is going to be, if it truly is as extensive as they are saying, I think that it will resolve a lot of problems, and it will position this property in a long-term manner. But again, the concern is that history has shown that painting the pig is just that. It's slapping paint on, okay, and not necessarily taking everything away. As the city knows, they had a carpenter bee problem back several years back, which it took a couple years, 2-3 years, to finally get resolved. And finally, somebody came along and tore out the rotted wood where the bees had made their home. And knock on wood and say prayers, okay? We haven't had any problems this year or I don't even believe last year. So there are some positives. I mean, we want them to succeed. We aren't here, okay, with a hammer saying this is a nightmare, what they're proposing now. We want it to be aesthetically pleasing, to complement the neighborhood, but we also want life safety items addressed.
Were you one of the neighbors who showed up at the DAPR meeting?
Yeah, I was the one who spoke at the DAPR meeting.
Who else showed up?
There was Judy Artwick and Bill Stafford.
Were they also members of the condominium association, or were they?
Bill is a member of the condo association.
Did anybody
and
from any
Judy.
single families or in the neighborhood come? Or is everything else pretty much student housing?
Everything else is student housing, or adjacent to us, to the south of us, is also, I believe, 8 condominium units, and then you start moving into the Kingston condominiums. So they're not as affected.
Okay.
Recognize that just because of the design of our building, our front entrance faces that backyard.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're
Does
welcome.
anybody else have any other questions?
I can address a couple of his concerns.
Okay.
First of all,
Wait, come on back up. Got to come up to the microphone.
I can address a couple of concerns raised by Mr. Carver. First of all, there are the plans. John, you can take a look. Because I think they address some of what you're talking about, particularly with the back stairwell. We recognize...
Can you get a set of those in PDF format and get those to Melissa so we can take a look at them as well?
Okay.
The architect should be able to do that.
Yeah, do you have those already? They were submitted for the plan review.
Not digitally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not in PDF. Okay. And the building will be sprinklered. It's going to be required, and life safety requires that. And if necessary, we'll have to change the water service. We are aware of that. And also, I would be amenable to requiring the permits be pulled by a date certain and construction completed by a date certain. That's what I'm offering today. I don't know if...
Right.
Yeah. So just for next time then, when Mr. Radman comes in, if you could bring in a plan for when that construction can be completed by and the cost of the construction, those are the kinds of questions we're interested in.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here? You've been sitting back there the whole time. Are you just fascinated?
Sorry, just for clarity,
Okay.
not just the interior construction, sir, but also the list of items that's the exterior, when that also can be completed in terms of a plan.
So I would be prepared to offer the entire project, start to finish.
Great.
I don't want to...
Yeah, and if you
Perfect.
need to propose it in phases, that's fine too, but I think we just want to understand what the commitment is.
Sure, they'd necessarily be in phases, but yes.
Great.
Great. Thank you very much. All right.
Okay, with that in mind, then, I remove that we keep the record open but continue this matter, 18 ZMJV-0073, until the September 25th meeting, so that Mr. Mark Radman can give the testimony and plans that we've requested.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? With that, we continue that on to the next meeting.
I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.